A Course in Miracles, a transcription of the shorthand notes manuscripts of Helen Schucman. First draft. Okay, reading from that. The emphasis on mental illness, which is in these notes, reflects the undoing aspect of the miracle. The doing aspect is, of course, much more important, but a true miracle cannot occur on a false basis. Sometimes the undoing must precede it. At other times, both can occur simultaneously, but you are not up to this at the moment. Further, insights into mental illness can be misused and lead to preoccupation with one's own symptoms. This is why this area is less constructive for most people than a course devoted to mental health. However, some professions will find some principles of mental illness constructive, especially those which are concerned with mental illness in others. This obviously includes psychologists. Um, I would say most all of this is in Robert Perry's CE version of A Course in Miracles. None of it probably in the FIP. The undoing aspect of the miracle. So um, the ego mentality has to be undone. It's undone by the Holy Spirit with our cooperation in terms of not feeding beliefs that have remorse, disappointment, sorrow, or any other negative emotion in them, not feeding those beliefs. No mind wandering. If a belief comes up that I know is an ego belief because it's not supremely happy, let it go right there. Do not give it energy in terms of thought, and undo all negative ego mental energy back into the God mind is the idea. The ego is not destroyed. It's that mental energy is transformed back into the God mind. Ideas such as that. Uh, I mean, the goal is the doing. So doing. So the goal is moment to moment, perfect calmness, perfect tranquility, perfect strength, not having, tremendous numbers of ego thoughts going in all sorts of directions moment to moment. One strong, calm, confident, good, peaceful, holy, joyous thought at a time, moment to moment. That's the goal. Jesus in his public mission. Other things here about mental illness and such, more directly to Helen in terms of ideas she would understand. This is early on in the transcription of A Course in Miracles. A lot of terms that are about psychology, um, you know, so that Helen would understand. It would relate to Helen in terms of what's being discussed. Reading from the notes of Helen Schucman, ACIM. The obvious correction for all types of the possession fallacy is to redefine possession correctly in the sense of taking over. The concept does not exist at all in divine reality, which is the only level of reality where real existence is a meaningful term. No one can be taken over unless he wills to be. However, if he places his mind under tyranny rather than authority, he intrudes the submission dominance concept onto free will himself. This produces the obvious contradiction inherent in any formulation which associates free will with imprisonment. Even in very mild forms, this kind of association is risky and may spread quite unexpectedly, particularly under external stress. This is because it can be internally controlled only if external conditions are peaceful. This is not safe because external conditions are produced by the thoughts of many, not all of whom are pure in heart as yet. So this does sound like it's in Robert Perry's CE book. Um, I mean, the goal is to live perfectly in the will of God. Um, you are, anyone is living somebody else's will in that sense, in terms of the will of God. So, Jesus said the truth shall set you free. The truth is that, the goal is to live perfectly in the will of God, the first person of the Trinity. And that's as much freedom, joy, and peace as anyone can have in terms of what all that means in terms of this lifetime and eternity. Um, so, so ACIM, I, you, or anyone has made beliefs from a young age that were not perfect peace, perfect joy, supremely happy, perfect goodness, etc. And um, I, you, or anyone can place myself under those beliefs, um, in terms of living those beliefs, and that would be tyranny, living by the ego's beliefs, that which is not supremely happy. Again, a lot of psychological terms here. So, not all of whom are pure in heart as yet. So the goal is to be pure, mind purification. You know, there's a sentence in this book about mind purification is necessary first before the Jesus-like way of living can take place for someone. Perfect peace, perfect joy, perfect goodness, real patience, real calmness. One strong positive God thought after another instead of a jumble of ego thoughts going in different directions about different things all the time. So instead of that, strength, joy, peace, the ability to observe, be calm, be strong, be tranquil in every moment, moment to moment. So, and the goal is purity of mind in that sense. There's a sentence in this book about, something like the teacher of God or somebody who's living these ideas, will not will not ever have an impure thought, but you would have no impure thoughts that you would keep. So, something could occur to me, you, or anyone that we know is an ego thought, but it would no longer be attractive. I would not act on it. Sentence in this book about the attraction of God opposes, or no, the attraction of guilt, the attraction of guilt, which would be remorse, sorrow, disappointment. The attraction of guilt opposes the attraction of God, which is always peace, joy, strength, goodness. Um, there's another sense about that, about, okay, so in any single instant, the attraction of guilt would be experienced as pain and nothing else, meaning not pleasure. It would be experienced as pain and nothing else, or not pleasure, and would be avoided. So, for the really evolved human being, um, having an ego thought, in terms of that which is not, that which would not lead to being supremely happy, an ego thought, um, would be experienced as pain and not pleasure, and would be avoided. Um, there's other sentences about that topic in the book. Reading from ACIM, why should you be at their mercy? This issue is very closely related to the whole possession issue. You insist on thinking that people can possess you if you believe that their thoughts or the external environment can affect you, regardless of what they think. You are perfectly unaffected by all expressions of lack of love. These can be either from yourself and others, or from yourself to others, or from others to you. I'm glad you passed that test. It was crucial. So most of this would be in Robert Perry's ACIM book, maybe some of it in the FIP. Stuff that's real general and personal to Helen would probably not be in Robert Perry's book. But um, so there's a lot in this book about minds are joined. Um, for me, that's the simple idea that there's a truth to everything: physical behavior, spiritual beliefs, beliefs about God, beliefs about Jesus, everything. There's a truth to everything, which leads to perfect peace, perfect joy, perfect strength, and not doing anything, doing something incorrectly in terms of not how God designed it is a fine expression to me, but um, doing things wrongly, whether it's physical behavior, thoughts, beliefs, words, actions, um, um, uh, will lead to remorse, disappointment, sorrow, or some other negative emotion. And there's a right and a wrong to everything. Every physical behavior has a right and a wrong. Every thought, belief has a right and a wrong. So, I, you, or anyone in our Christ mind, Jesus like mind, we're unaffected by anything that's not the perfect mind, in terms of what's going on around us or amongst others or something like that. Um, so the goal is to know what is perfectly true about every physical behavior, every thought, belief, word uttered, know the truth about everything, live it 100%. And that's all I'm looking for in others. Um, and if someone else is doing the opposite, I'm not judging what they're doing. I'm not disappointed by what they're doing. I'm not angry or annoyed by what they're doing. I'm not resentful towards what they're doing. None of it. None of those feelings at all. I remain wholly joyous. They're doing the opposite of what I believe is wholly joyous, but it has no effect on me. I'm not thinking anything negative about it. Reading from the notes of Helen Schucman, ACIM. Peace is an attribute in you. You cannot find it outside. All mental illness is some form of external searching. Mental health is inner peace. It enables you to remain unshaken by lack of love from without and capable, through your own miracles, to correct the external conditions which proceed from lack of love in others. That paragraph would be in Robert Perry's book, Mental Illness. Mental illness would simply be ego mentality, anything that's not perfect joy, peace, strength. Um, in terms of thoughts, beliefs, mental illness, mental pain, any mental pain of any kind, any mental upsets, any doubt, distress, remorse, sorrow, disappointment, anxiety, loneliness, worry, feelings of uncertainty, grievances, feelings of deprivation, any of it. That's all mental illness, mental upset, mental pain. That's the ego mentality. That's what has to be undone completely. So, mental health is inner peace, real mental health, Jesus like levels of perfect joy, peace, strength, confidence, goodness, kindness, tenderness, um, patience, all of it, moment to moment. That would be mental health, in terms of being in peace, tranquility, the peace of God, which passes understanding. And someone living in that way is unshaken by things that are not that going on around them in any way, in terms of other people or whatever. Um, and someone like Jesus, or someone who's living in the God mind, brings their own miracles to correct the external conditions, in terms of helping someone else in some way. If things are going on in any way that are not supremely happy, not the will of God, then um, someone living right minded brings words or actions that bring about joy, peace, and strength to whatever the situation is. Reading from the notes of Helen Schucman, ACIM. When you are afraid of anything, you are acknowledging its power to hurt you. Remember that where your heart is, there is your treasure also. This means that you believe in what you value. If you are afraid, you are valuing wrong. Human understanding will inevitably value wrong, and by endowing all human thoughts with equal power, will inevitably destroy peace. This is why the Bible speaks of the peace of God, which passeth human understanding. That would be in Robert Perry's book. Maybe some of it's in the FIP, but So fear, and unpleasant emotions. So there should be zero unpleasant emotions every moment, moment to moment. Um, Life should be nothing but supremely happy every moment, moment to moment, in every way. Um, so it's all about knowing what is perfect joy, peace, strength about everything, physical behavior, spiritual beliefs, everything. Knowing what perfect joy, peace, strength are, and living in it, and never not living in it. So the ego equates all ideas the same, whether they're truly from the God mind in terms of what is really truly the will of God, joy, peace, and strength about some subject, or an ego belief that's not supremely happy. The ego sees all thoughts as equal. And so there's a sentence in the book about um, uh, lofty ideas such as God ideas of real joy, peace, strength about anything. Um, uh, that's a threat to the ego. I forget. There's a sentence in the book about something about all that. It might have already been, um, or it might have already come up, or it might be coming up um, in this. But that's the idea that beliefs are not of equal power. There are ego beliefs which are filled with remorse, disappointment, sorrow, anxiety, or some other negative emotion. And there are God beliefs which are filled with nothing but calmness, strength, peace, joy. And it's always about always living in, choosing the God belief and allowing for the undoing of the ego mentality. Reading from the notes of Helen Schucman, ACIM, this piece is totally incapable of being shaken by human errors of any kind. It denies the ability of anything which is not of God to affect you in any way. So, Jesus of Nazareth in his public mission is certainly living this way, where phenomenal sense of peace and joy, knowing how to go about everything, physical behavior of any kind, spiritual beliefs, moment to moment, words, situations, all of it, knowing how to go about everything in perfect peace, joy, strength with whomever you're with in whatever way, moment to moment, and nothing that's negative can affect someone like that. ACIM. This is the proper use of denial. It is not used to hide anything, but it is used to correct error. It brings all error into the light. And since error and darkness are the same, it abolishes error automatically. So all this sounds like it's in Robert Perry's book. Um, so the proper use of denial is to deny ego mentality. I believe that's another sentence in the book saying something like that. I'm paraphrasing some, but um, so I mean, there are sentences in this book about face your ego, address your ego in terms of beliefs that are not supremely happy, like face them and then let them go, allow them to be undone, help the Holy Spirit with the undoing. There's sentences in the book like, the correction of fear and, is your responsibility. The correction of any unpleasant emotion is your responsibility. So I have to not give it energy from a free will standpoint, but also the Holy Spirit is helping with the undoing or is doing the actual undoing of the negative ego mental energy. Um, and this book often brings in the analogy of light immediately dismisses darkness. That's in this book several times, various places. So the idea then would be living in the eternal light of God always eliminates ego mentality. Reading from the notes of Helen Schucman, ACIM, true denial is a very powerful protective device. You can and should deny any belief that error can hurt you. This kind of denial is not a concealment device, but a correction device. The right mind of the mentally healthy depends on it. You can do anything I ask. I have asked you to perform miracles and have made it very clear that these are natural, corrective, healing, and universal. There is nothing good they cannot do, but they cannot be performed in the spirit of doubt. Ugh. Remember my own question before you ask yours. O ye of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? You have asked yourselves why you cannot really incorporate my words. The idea of cannibalism in connection with the sacrament is a reflection of a distorted view of sharing. I told you before that the word thirst in connection with the Spirit was used because of the limited understanding of those to whom I spoke. I also told you not to use it. The same holds for expressions like feeding on. So most of this is in Robert Perry's book, maybe all of it. So deny that anything about the ego mind can affect me in terms of having me live in any way other than supremely happy. So this book talks about right mind and wrong mind, especially in the manual, right-mindedness, sinlessness, purity, holiness, sanctity to God, sanctity to God's will, holiness, sinless, pure, holy, blameless, innocent, the right mind. Same thing as moral, virtuous, righteous, the real Jesus in terms of living life, in terms of thoughts and beliefs leading to words and actions, the right mind versus wrong-mindedness, ego mentality. So this book has a lot of first-person Jesus in it, especially early on, but throughout the book, there's a lot of first-person Jesus in terms of the author here. You know, I mean, actually, so in the Urantia book, Urantia, there's a sentence about Jesus. Jesus said, you shall, as far as his miracles were concerned, or things that were miraculous, like at the time of the transfiguration in the Bible, Jesus actually said, you shall see greater things than this, not you shall do greater things than this. So, and Jesus was referring to, at that time of the transfiguration, he was referring to the resurrection of Lazarus and also his own resurrection after his death. So that's what he was referring to in terms of seeing greater things than this. So a miracle. I like one of the sentences in the book says, miracles are the absence of the body. So understand me, you, or anyone as a spirit mind, not a body. So I, you, or anyone is not a body, but you are something. You are a spirit mind, an individual spirit mind, and that's how you should view people. I love someone's mind, not their body. That would be the idea throughout ACIM. A lot of different sentences about that subject. Miracles. For me, just in general, miracles. Anything that's filled with joy, peace, strength, goodness. I mean, certainly Jesus's actual physical miracles were filled with joy, peace, love, goodness, and any epiphany of thought, any joy, peace, strength, goodness, any of those positive attributes in any way is a miracle and is undoing the ego mentality by living that way every moment to moment. So again, there has to be no doubt, no uncertainty, every moment to moment, zero doubt, zero uncertainty. There's a sentence in the book, something like, it only mentions it once, but it's something like, you, or anyone has the power to dominate all things by knowing your capital S self. So what that means is If I'm living in perfect joy, peace, service, love, goodness, um, then I'm living in um, uh, perfect service to others. So if I'm living in perfect service to others, zero selfishness in terms of selfishness, truly living that way in every way, moment to moment, then in a sense you're dominating all things because you're remaining perfectly joyous, peaceful, and strong, and you're giving others um, uh, service in terms of what is love, goodness, and peace and joy about everything that's going on in any given moment. Um, okay, so reading from the notes of Helen Schucman, ACIM, symbiosis is misunderstood by the mentally ill who use it that way. But I also told you that you must recognize your total dependence on God, a statement which you did not like. Um, so yeah, that's probably in Robert Perry's book, probably not in the FIP at all, but there's a couple sentences or more about your total dependence on God, like be as a newborn in thought, word, and action. Be born again. Be as a newborn in every given moment in terms of 100% helplessness, total dependence on God in every way, in every moment, moment to moment. There's sentences in the book about God is as dependent on you as you are on Him, in the sense that I have to live up to what perfect peace, joy, strength are. That's the will of God in my life. And God is as dependent on me to do that, to fulfill or help fulfill God's plan. Um, so God is dependent on me to live that way in His will in terms of perfect peace, joy, strength, to help fulfill His plan. So God is as dependent on us as we are on God to maintain that state of mind of perfect peace, joy, strength, where the great rays of God come in and keep someone in perfect joy, peace, strength, tranquility, real enlightenment, similar to Jesus during his public mission. Reading from the notes of Helen Schucman, ACIM, God and the souls he created are symbiotically related. They are completely dependent on each other. The creation of the soul itself has already been perfectly accomplished, but the creation by something, souls, has not. God created souls so he could depend on them because he created them perfectly. He gave them his peace so they would not be shaken and would be unable to be deceived. Whenever you are afraid, you are deceived. Your mind is not serving your soul. Capital S at the beginning of the word soul. This literally starves the soul by denying its daily bread. Remember the poem about the Holy Family which crossed your mind last night, where tricks of words are never said and mercy is as plain as bread. The reason why that had such a strong impact on you originally was because you knew what it meant. So this pretty much all this would be in Robert Perry's book, maybe not some of the stuff that's a little more strictly personal to Helen, but um, I'm not exactly sure what symbiotic means, except that it's the idea of, I am as dependent on God as God is on me, just living in perfect dependence on God in every way, moment to moment. Um, so ACIM says, I, you, or anyone was created perfect, and then from birth, I made beliefs that were not the perfect will of God. They had remorse, doubt, fear, disappointment, anxiety, or some other negative emotion in them, leading to actions which brought about those emotions. So those beliefs are blocks to the awareness of my God mind, my Christ like mind, my God self. And that's what has to be undone. So we're already perfect. We need to undo that which we made, which is blocking our knowing of our perfection as a human being walking the earth plane, similar to Jesus in his public mission. Um, So, whenever you are afraid, you are deceived. So, fear, an unpleasant emotion of any kind. That is the ego mentality. There's various references to the Bible because of the author here and the nature of the ideas in ACIM, various references to Bible ideas, Bible things.